In 2019, Kawhi Leonard lit the NBA world on fire.
Is this the dagger?
A lot of people up here don't know much about you. How would you describe yourself, and what would you like people to know about you?
He is the best player in the world. Kawhi 1, LeBron 2.
I'm a fun guy.
Fun guy, what's up, baby?
What it do, baby?
Yeah, you already know.
Obviously, I love the game of basketball.
A couple of plays he doesn't usually do. Trying to make a point. Leonard makes his move. Oh! That's a man's jam!
I mean, it's just more questions you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about myself. I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
The Raptors, the 2019 NBA champs.
Today, Kawhi's prime seems to be nearing the end due to the lingering issues with his right knee that have persisted for more than 5 years now, and perhaps newer NBA fans might not even be sure what all the hype is about for a guy who's averaged about 46 games for the last 5 seasons. But a healthy Kawhi was arguably a top 3 player in the league in his prime, and had shown glimpses of it in the few seasons before joining the Clippers. But in the 2019 postseason specifically, he made his case as the best player in the world. In that playoff run, Kawhi scored a total of 732 points, which is the third most in NBA history, behind only Michael Jordan in 1992 and LeBron in 2018. And then he capped it off with a championship, making him one of just 3 NBA players to win 2 Finals MVP trophies with 2 different teams. However, what many might not remember is the aftermath of Kawhi's dominance in that postseason and how it changed the league in the years that followed, almost in some sort of butterfly effect. Be sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, but now, let's get into the year that Kawhi shifted the NBA landscape.
I want to officially welcome Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green here.
When Kawhi got traded to Toronto in the summer of 2018, it was a surprise to many in the NBA world, especially because he had made it clear that he wanted to be traded to the Lakers and that he had no interest in playing for the Raptors. It marked a huge shift in the Raptors franchise, which had spent the previous 9 seasons with DeMar DeRozan as their number 1 option, and it was also a huge gamble by Raptors president Masai Ujiri, who was trading away one of the only superstars that had pledged to be loyal to the city for a player who on paper looked like a 1-year rental. It was generally believed that the Raptors were signing an unhappy superstar on an expiring contract, and on top of that, his health was still a question mark.
Well, I was told that Kawhi Leonard really has no desire to play in Toronto. We all know his preferences over the last couple of months.
You're taking a chance on a guy who has told you very specifically that he did not want to be traded to Toronto. If Kawhi leaves and you wind up trading DeMar DeRozan essentially for nothing.
But trading DeMar was something that had to be done. The DeRozan era in Toronto had run its course after their multiple embarrassing playoff losses to LeBron's Cavs teams, but it became clearer than ever after they got swept in 2018 when LeBron had virtually no star help. After that loss, the Raptors needed to move in a different direction, and the players knew it too.
I knew something was gonna happen. Like when LeBron hit that little buzzer beater with the right running and gamed us like that, me and Fred looked at each other in the locker room like, yeah, man, something's gonna go.
Not playing with you.
Yeah, like, it was like, man, something gotta go. Like,
Even with all the risk that came with signing him though, Masai was willing to swing big because Kawhi wasn't just any 1-year rental. He was a 2-time All-Star, a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and a Finals MVP. He had also shown to be a guy who raises his game in the playoffs, which was exactly what Toronto needed to get over the hump. And the breath of fresh air that the organization needed was exactly what Kawhi brought, and it was noticeable as early as training camp.
Like going into training camp was just different. Like it was a different feel. Like every year I was in Toronto, we was in the playoffs. Like it felt good. Like, oh, this team's solid. We got the right pieces. But like, I don't even know, like the energy that Y had, like we looking at each other like, oh, we got this year, man. This is a different feel, man. It's like looking at Bron or like Jordan or Kobe on the court. You know what I mean? Just the way he's able to read the game and like the stillness he has when he plays.
Now, that's aura. Kawhi continued to make his presence felt throughout the regular season, where he went on to average career highs in points and in rebounds with 26 and 7, while shooting just under 50% from the field, good enough to earn him his 3rd All-Star appearance. And looking back on that regular season, you see that Kawhi gave fans many moments to remember. From crazy defensive plays,
Oh my goodness, what a play.
to plays above the rim,
Leonard.
around the rim,
This game. Crowder has, that's a career high, 30. Wow.
and so many clutch moments, including some that looked
Kawhi for the win.
oddly familiar. It also seemed like for the first time in Kawhi's career, fans were really getting to see what his personality was like off the court, because before joining the Raptors, he was generally known as the most mysterious superstar in the NBA. But that changed fairly quickly because of his play on the court, but it had been building up since his historic introduction at Media Day. His play on the court also translated to winning, as the team started off the season with a 23-7 record in the first 30 games and eventually finished second in the East. But the real Kawhi show was just beginning, because when the playoffs rolled around, Kawhi turned into a different animal. In the first round of the playoffs, the Raptors faced the 7th seed Orlando Magic. Toronto was a far better team than the Magic, and outside of a Game 1 legacy game from DJ Augustine, the Raptors beat Orlando fairly easily in 5 games. In that series, Kawhi put on monster performances, averaging 28 points and 6 rebounds on 55% shooting from the field and 53% from 3. And as crazy as his stats and efficiency were in the first round matchup, it was only a glimpse of what was to come. In the next series, the stakes were higher. They were going against the 76ers team that many viewed as a favorite to come out of the East, mainly because it had one of the best 5-man lineups in the league. Philly had 3 All-Stars in Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, and Ben Simmons. They also had a prime JJ Redick, who was coming off of his best season, averaging 18 points, and they also had Tobias Harris. Even the Raptors viewed the Sixers as their toughest matchup coming in, so right from the jump they knew it was going to be a dogfight.
And while y'all going through that run, were you guys like, yeah, like, we got this?
Yeah, I think the only time it was against Philly. I mean, because this Philly's lineup was crazy. You know,
I think the way we matched up, it was like, you know, obviously we got Joe, we got Ben, like all tough, you know, on defense, and they have shooters everywhere, and it was a tough series, and
we couldn't play.
A tough team,
yeah. Like our bench unit couldn't play against them just because of the size on the floor. Like it was tough. Besides them, we felt like we had it.
And in game 1 of that series, Kawhi answered the call, scoring a playoff career high of 45 points on 70% shooting, and he also finished with 11 rebounds. Game 1 was not a close contest and the Raptors won in a 20-point blowout victory, but Game 2 was closer, and despite strong efforts from Toronto's Big Three, Philly ended up winning behind Jimmy Butler's 30-point double-double performance. Game 3 was another blowout, but that time it was Philly that took home the victory with a 2-1 lead, and Joel Embiid was making sure to rub it in their faces.
This building is shaking right now.
Philly had a chance to secure a 3-1 lead at home, and they came out looking to do exactly that, but it turned out to be a grit and grind game because both teams struggled to shoot the ball late in the game, especially the Raptors.
it was a tough environment, and like I think nothing was going in for us. Like nothing was going well. Like we wasn't playing really well, and it just like.
But with the risk of going down 3-1, Kawhi put the team on his back after checking back in the game with 10 minutes left in the fourth.
I remember in that fourth quarter, I thought the series was over.
Yeah.
Like I thought
No, it was
Kawhi
tough.
saved.
Kawhi just like he took over. Like he literally took over.
Leonard against Scott. Kicks it out to Gasol. Got a clean look. Embiid got picked off. Butler picked up Leonard. It didn't matter. Nice flare to the corner by Redick. Got the Simmons pressing up on Leonard. Embiid switches. Fires a long one. Big time bucket. Pass in traffic. Harris the 3. Missing, and the Raptors in control now. But time's going to run out, though, on the 76ers. As the Raptors come back, bounce back with resilience in a robust way.
In that fourth quarter, Kawhi scored or assisted on 13 of the last 20 points in that tight contest, and he finished with 39 points and 14 rebounds, shooting a ridiculous 65% from the field and 71% from three-point range. That performance was a turning point for the Raptors, and it helped to really put into perspective just how good Kawhi Leonard was playing. Because between the back and forth blowouts and Embiid's antics in Game 3, people got distracted from the fact that in that series, Kawhi was averaging 38 points and 9 rebounds on 62% shooting from the field. that production on that efficiency is insane. But those numbers would later change as Philly focused on him more defensively. The two teams split the next two games, and then there was Game 7. I'm not going to spend too much time on the game itself because it was a tight contest. The teams had proven to be pretty evenly matched, and Kawhi exploded for a game-high 41-point performance. In that game, Kawhi was determined to empty the clip, which is why he finished with 39 shot attempts. And his last shot in that game will always be remembered because with the game tied in regulation and with 4 seconds left on the clock, Kawhi delivered.
It's off to Leonard, defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger?
And just like that, the Raptors had done it. They had moved past the Sixers and they were heading to the conference finals, and they got their lick back on Embiid, who was trolling in Game 3, and now he's crying. But not so fast. That shot also changed the NBA in ways that we're still seeing today. Without a doubt, Kawhi was the most dominant player in that series, but right behind him was Jimmy Butler, who also led the Sixers to many of their wins. Butler led the Sixers in scoring and in assists and was top 3 in steals and blocks. He also led the team in offensive rating, even though statistically speaking he was the third option. Based on the numbers, Jimmy Butler was the best player on the Sixers in that series. But at the time, he was also one of the newest players on the team, acquired at the trade deadline on an expiring contract. As soon as that shot dropped, Butler's future with the Sixers went into question.
When that Kawhi shot went in,
yeah,
what was going through your head?
What was going through my head? A lot. So the shot goes in, we go back to the locker room. I'm in awe a little bit, and then after like everything settles down, the first thing that comes to my mind legit is, will I be back here? Will I have an opportunity to do this again with these guys?
Ultimately, Butler did not resign with the Sixers, and that was a mistake on the part of the front office in a whole other different story. And in recent years, Butler's multiple playoff runs have continued to prove that the Sixers made the wrong decision. If Butler had gotten 5 minutes of overtime and a shot at another playoff series, he may very well be a Sixer today.
I already knew how I believe it would have worked out if that shot wouldn't have went in and we go into overtime and we win.
But as we know, Butler went on to sign with the Heat, and Miami has gone on to 2 finals with him as a superstar. There's a possibility that none of that happens if Kawhi doesn't make the shot. And I get it, we just can't rely on what ifs, but what we do know is that with that shot, Kawhi ended Butler's tenure with the Sixers, and he also sent home the best 5-man lineup that Philly has ever had in the process. So from that game winner, Philly's best shot at a championship run was shut down by Kawhi, Butler's time with the Sixers was brought to an end, and it led to an off-season signing that created one of the best Eastern Conference teams in the past 5 seasons. And Kawhi was still not done leaving his imprint. In the next round, the Raptors faced the Milwaukee Bucks, and 24-year-old Giannis was establishing himself as a premier NBA superstar. It was widely believed that the best player that season was either him or James Harden, and he had managed to lead the Bucks to the #1 seed. But in that postseason, Kawhi was also reminding the NBA world that he's up there with the best of them, so the series was going to answer a major question.
I've said from the beginning, this is to determine who the best player in the world is. Is it Giannis or is it Kawhi? And right now, Kawhi is in the lead.
The Bucks were coming off of a second-round victory against a stacked Boston team, and they continued their dominant streak, opening the series up with 2 straight wins. Toronto was down 0-2, and that was largely because of the play of Giannis, who averaged 27 points and 15 rebounds in those first 2 games. And from those 2 games alone, the media was ready to crown the Bucks as the Eastern Conference champions.
One game into the series, and I'm already ready to declare this series is over. They can't beat these boys. I'm going to tell you that right now.
But then, the Raptors made an adjustment that slowed down Giannis and quite honestly exposed him. In what was dubbed the Giannis rules, Raptors coach Nick Nurse introduced a new tactic to guard Giannis that involved building a wall with the defense every time he attacked in transition and doubling him with a big in the post. Another change that was made by Nick Nurse was making Kawhi the primary defender on Giannis. In Game 1 and 2, Kawhi guarded Giannis on just 3 of his 36 field goal attempts, but for the rest of the series, he guarded him on 25 field goal attempts, and Giannis was only able to convert on 7 of them. Kawhi displayed his two-way dominance as the Raptors went on to win 4 straight games on their way to the finals, and he also put Giannis on the highlight reels on the offensive side of the ball. That Raptors defense exposed that outside of attacking the rim, Giannis had no offense in the half court at that time. He was not a good shooter, wasn't very reliable in the post, and his playmaking was also limited. It gave Giannis another hurdle to climb, and eventually Giannis did get over it, but for a moment, Kawhi's Raptors exposed some major holes in his game. And the craziest part was that Kawhi wasn't even fully healthy because his knee was acting up as early as Game 3 of that series. But just like that, the narrative had shifted.
When the money on the line, Kawhi and Giannis was a mismatch. Both ends of the floor. Kawhi did him. He is number one. Giannis isn't close.
Heading into the finals, the Raptors season was already a win, and the Kawhi trade had already proven to be a success for the Raptors. All of DeRozan's weaknesses that had led to him being traded turned out to be strengths for Kawhi. First, there was DeRozan's tendency to shrink in the playoffs, but Kawhi had proven that he takes it to another level in the postseason. And in clutch playoff situations where DeMar used to struggle, Kawhi showed that he's just as good as anybody in the league. And on top of that, he was also an elite defender. The Raptors made it to the finals, but I'm not gonna act like they dominated the Warriors just because Golden State wasn't at full strength with two major injuries to both Durant and Klay Thompson. Most people would argue that a healthy Golden State would have beaten Toronto, but the Raptors still executed even with a banged up Kawhi, and they won the championship that they had been chasing after for all those years with DeMar. That championship marked the end of the Big Three era in Golden State, and for a while it looked like it was also the end of the dynasty. Kawhi secured his spot as the best player in the league that season, and he shut up all the doubts about him from the previous year, and more than anything, he had proven that he was indeed a fun guy.
Enjoy this moment and have fun with it. Aha, ha, ha, ha.
The big question after the win was whether Kawhi was going to resign with the Raptors, and the city was practically begging him to. But Kawhi had his eyes set on going back home, which had been his wish all along, and nobody could blame him for it, especially after delivering a championship. And in the midst of his departure, Kawhi did one more thing that had a lasting impact on the league.
But most of all, I'm pumped to say hello as Clippers to Paul and Kawhi. Come on! Come on!
Before signing with the Clippers, Kawhi made a demand for them to sign Paul George along with him. This was Kawhi at his peak, so LA couldn't just say no to the best player in free agency and the idea of the two together in a front court. That led to the infamous trade where the Clippers traded away a rookie Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. In hindsight, that was a terrible decision by the Clippers, but at the moment, it looked like they had to do it because of the kind of dominance Kawhi had shown in his championship run. That trade package turned out to include a future superstar in SGA and a pick that turned out to be Jalen Williams. Two players who have helped OKC to turn into the best young team in the league and a #1 seed in the West. There's a part of me that feels like SGA getting traded to a rebuilding team also helped him to develop into the superstar he is today, because he was later put into a role as a #1 option, but that's hard to judge right now. But what we do know after all these years is that the trade sent the Clippers into an abyss because the franchise looks like it has hit a dead end when it comes to their future championship hopes. And all of it, along with everything else I mentioned, like Philly's failure with the process, the Heat's success in recent years, and OKC's emergence, can all be traced back to Kawhi and the Raptors' 2019 championship run. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you've made it this far, please leave a like. That's the best way to support the channel. But until next time, peace.